This video is designed to teach researchers about open access, what it is, why it matters, and how to make your work openly accessible. We at the library are deeply committed to promoting equitable access to information, and breaking down barriers is what open access is all about. Throughout this video, we'll be referring to library resources, such as the Research Toolkit and the Copyright Toolkit, to guide you. You can also reach out to us for more information at libraryhelp@curtin.edu.au. Let's start by talking about what open access is. Open access is a way of making research available without financial, legal, or technical barriers. These barriers include copyright restrictions and subscription paywalls. When you make your research open access, you are ensuring that the greatest number of people can access and benefit from your work. This is why most funders have open access policies, which mandate that a version of your research is made open access immediately upon publication. Curtin University supports open access in a variety of ways. This video will highlight two of these: the Open Scholarship Policy and the library's new institutional repository, CURATE. But before we discuss these, let's talk about the relationship between copyright and open access. It's important to know that all works created in Australia are automatically granted copyright upon creation. You don't need to register anything or even put a copyright symbol on it. And this includes anything you might write, draw, photograph, or record in some way. This can change based on employment agreements. For example, at Curtin, generally the copyright of scholarly works belongs to the authors, while the copyright of teaching materials belongs to the university. But it's only the copyright holder who can copy, share, adapt, perform, or translate the work without permission. Everyone else needs either permission, often in the form of a license, or an exception in the law. To learn more about copyright, visit the Copyright Toolkit website. The main thing to remember for the purposes of this video is that copyright is more restrictive than you might think. This is why open access is so important. All material on the internet is copyrighted automatically. The only thing you're allowed to do without permission or a legal exception is click on a link or read an article. By placing an open access license on your article, you're giving preemptive permission for the public to do things like download, copy, distribute, reuse, or even adapt your work. A common situation is when a researcher sees a diagram in a journal and they want to reuse it in their article or their thesis. If they see an open access license, they know they can use it immediately. Without this license, they'll need to request permission, and that's a barrier. Did you know that open access works have a higher diversity of citations across countries, institutions, and fields of research? It just makes sense that the more accessible a work is, the more likely it is to be cited. Keep in mind, there are different degrees of openness and different types of open access licenses you can put on your work, and users must always attribute the author, no matter what license you use. You might think, well, if work is available for free on the internet, it's open access. But that's not true. Without the license, it's still a typical, fully copyrighted work. Remember that open access is defined by what a user can do with the work, beyond just reading or accessing it. Another reason to make research open access is because it's often a condition of research funding. The Australian Research Council and the National Health and Medical Research Council both have policies which state that research outputs should be made open access upon publication, with an open access license, called a Creative Commons license, applied. So now that we understand the open access landscape and why it's important, let's talk about ways to make your research outputs open access. Curtin University has an open scholarship policy, which was co-created with the library and Curtin academics in 2023. The goal of the policy is to maximize the open dissemination of Curtin's scholarly outputs, including research and educational outputs. The policy asks researchers to provide the library with a version of their scholarly article so it can be made available in Curtin's institutional repository, known as CURATE. Here's a highly technical diagram to explain. An academic has a research article, and they want to publish it in a particular journal. Unfortunately, this journal is a subscription journal, which means that access is behind a paywall, which prevents most of the world from reading it. However, what the researcher can do is also provide a version of their article called the Author Accepted Manuscript, or AAM, and deposit it into CURATE via the Elements system. There, they can assign a Creative Commons license to their work to make it open access. That's all it takes to make work open access. It's not necessary to publish in a fully open access journal, although this is an option to consider. A key benefit of making your work available in CURATE is that there are no fees involved, no article processing charges. CURATE is not only a platform for disseminating work, it's a way of preserving it too. This is why we encourage you to deposit non-traditional research outputs as well, then decide how accessible you would like them to be. Non-traditional research outputs are things that aren't typically published in academic journals, such as reports, audiovisual material, or creative work. You might wish to deposit these in CURATE, but not necessarily make them accessible to the public. If this is the case, the work can still be preserved in CURATE, displaying only a descriptive record. This way, access to the work can be provided upon request. Another benefit of uploading work to CURATE is that it gets assigned a Digital Object Identifier, or DOI. This means it can more easily get counted by publication metrics, and the record can be findable by services like Google Scholar. So as we've shown, CURATE is beneficial to the researcher and to the public. It can be used to make your research open, but it can also make it secure for future generations. To learn more about CURATE, visit the Research Toolkit. Now, back to the Open Scholarship Policy. Another key feature of this document is how it supports the rights of authors. Here is another highly technical diagram to explain how this works. As we have seen, our researcher wanted to publish in the subscription journal. When they did this, they unfortunately signed a restrictive contract with the publisher. The contract stated that their work could not be made open access for 6 months. This is known as an embargo, and that any further use of the work is subject to permission by the publisher. Now, this has an impact when the author wants to do things like deposit a version of their manuscript into CURATE, or republish their work in an anthology, or translate their article into another language. They would have to ask the publisher to do these things, and the publisher could deny them. However, because of the Open Scholarship Policy, the university is able to grant a license back to the author, which allows them to reuse, adapt, and distribute their work without needing to deal with the publisher. This is possible because of the policy's rights retention clauses. Now, you might be asking, what do publishers think about this? Well, rights retention policies aren't exactly new. They've been around since 2008, and dozens of universities across North America, Europe, and the UK currently have them in place. Overall, funder mandates and rights retention policies, such as the Open Scholarship Policy, have forced publishers to bend more and more toward open access. In fact, a new study has shown that 40% of content in the top journal subscription packages can now be found freely online, mostly in open access journals and in institutional repositories like CURATE. You can learn more about the Open Scholarship Policy by visiting this page on the library website. Find out how the library supports open access publishing by visiting the Research Toolkit. And if you'd like to learn about creating and publishing open educational resources, visit the Curtin Open Books website. Making work open access maximizes impact, benefits the public, and allows for easier reuse with attribution. The CURATE repository provides flexible open access options, makes non-traditional research outputs visible, and preserves work for future generations. The Open Scholarship Policy provides a mandate for open access dissemination and helps authors retain their rights. We hope this video has helped you to understand the open access landscape. If you have any questions about the content of this video, please contact the library.